episode, we're going to be talking about communication. Why communication is important. Communication is important because with proper communication, you can avoid misunderstandings and accomplish great things. However, there are some killers that can prevent us from having great communication. And I would like for us to take a look at these killers today. What are some communication killers that can avoid people from understanding each other, right? Number one killer that I can think of is pride, right? Sometimes you're not able to understand what the other person is saying due to pride. You're wondering like, what does pride have to do with communication? Trust me, if I'm trying to communicate to you that, hey, what you're doing, I don't like it. Do you know, like, if you're so prideful, sometimes you can just brush it off like, please, who are you to talk to me, right? And because you don't want to be corrected, or you don't want to yield to instruction, or you just don't want to hear what that person is saying, it can avoid you from like even listening or digesting what they're trying to say to you. That's one of the killers of communication. Another one is impatience. Can you imagine, maybe like for you, you're just so eloquent in your speech, like, you talk properly, and like someone that stammers, right, for example, is trying to speak to you. Like, I mean, maybe because you just don't have the patience to talk to that person or to listen to what they're saying, or maybe the person is just not moving as fast as you'd want them to move. You can cut them off and not listen and just shut down in your mind. Even though you're hearing what they're saying, you just, like, I beg, say what you have to say because I have to go type thing. You're not listening. You're not grasping what they're saying. So that can also be a communication killer, impatience. Another thing is being overly sensitive. If I'm trying to communicate, let's take a look at that from the angle of being in a relationship with someone or even in marriage. If you're overly sensitive and your spouse is trying to tell you that, you know what, babe, what you did to me last night, or what you did, or your attitude affects me in a negative way. Because you're overly sensitive, it may shut down what they're trying to say to you and you start getting offended. And at that point, you will not be able to communicate, or the person is not communicating with you because guess what? Their feelings and their ideas is not being properly conveyed to you at that point. So that can be another communication killer. Another thing is insecurity. Imagine if you have insecurity that maybe you haven't dealt with. Maybe, for example, I'm just saying, maybe you grew up with like people body shaming you, right? And someone just tries to tell you something that has to do with weight. Maybe they're just communicating like, maybe weight, something about weight and blah, blah, blah. You may get offended easily without even listening to what they're trying to say, because in your mind, you're already defensive, thinking that they're coming for you because you have insecurities. I mean, that's just an example. We can think of different examples of insecurities, right? Also, low self-esteem, which is kind of like hand in hand with insecurities. When you have insecurity, you probably have a low self-esteem, right, in that area. So if you have low self-esteem, when people are trying to communicate with you, you get overly defensive. Why? Because you see everything as an attack, right? You either get overly sensitive by crying or just shutting everything down. Again, communication is not being displayed at that point, because guess what? You're shutting it down. You're not listening. Another thing is ignorance, laziness, and that's just to mention a few. There are like so many communication killers that can really kill relationships and marriages, and you just have to like take a look at all those things to see like in what area am I killing communication with my friends, with my spouse, with my boss. Can you imagine if you're working and your boss is trying to give you a feedback, a constructive criticism about your work? You may get offended because guess what? You're not so sure or secured in that area. And again, the boss will not be able to communicate to you because you're not receiving it well. So I would love to hear from you, like some of the communication killers that you think maybe you've experienced, or maybe like in your relationship, in your marriage, with your friendships, to see how like, some of those things have destroyed your relationships. I would like to hear from you. Please don't forget to drop your comment in the comment section. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.